Hi, it's Joe Mazumdar of Exploration Insights at the September 2022 version of the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver. And with me right now is the CEO and President Sam Lee of Northisle Copper and Gold. Just to dig into it first, just the copper market. What's the, dichotomy between where we see the copper market and everybody being negative about copper when we see that, it's one of these critical minerals, metals that'll be required for this carbon neutral society that we're embarking on?
Yeah, it's definitely a tale of two cities, Joe. I think what certainly is driving the narrative with copper certainly is the electrification motif, the net carbon neutrality motif. You can't electrify without copper. Copper is one of the most, if not the most important critical metal out there. What's hampering it is obviously the macroeconomic situation with regards to what's happening around China, lockdowns. China is, over half of the world's growth. When we saw copper run to 470 back in 2011, that was predominantly driven by 11% GDP growth from China. So we're seeing those headwinds. We're also seeing the recession fears, but I do think that all in all, there is a bit of a balance as it relates to the future narrative versus looking in the past.
So this short-termism is being sort of, we don't see that dichotomy maybe by the industry or by governments who are basically trying to bring these critical minerals into production because, the other issue is the segmentation of global supply chains such that people want that critical mineral closer to home than further. And so how do you see that playing out right now in the copper market?
Yeah, so the ship has sailed as it relates to policy, right? So we're seeing obviously the Biden administration dedicating trillions of dollars towards critical metals. We obviously here in Canada had a budget that came out in April of this year that identified a number of metals as critical metals, copper being, again, one of the most important of which, and for them to provide additional tax credits around flow-through offerings for which we were able to access, and also development opportunities, capital available to expedite critical mineral projects such as ours. So as I said, the ship has sailed as it relates to the momentum driven behind the electrification and the net carbon neutrality and net carbon zero motif. And it's starting to slowly percolate down into realistic activity that we obviously can take advantage of.
And taking advantage of, if we just segue into how you did take advantage of with your recent financing, because if you are not a critical mineral potential producer, you wouldn't have been able to tap into this financing at a premium that you just recently did.
Correct. So we are, just by way of background, our project is a very large copper gold porphyry. We look to produce approximately 100 million pounds of copper and approximately 100,000 ounces of gold a year for 22 years. So on a value distribution level, that's approximately 64% copper and about 35% gold. So this is a critical mineral company of pretty sizable proportions with a very attractive gold credit. We are very interested in the gold credit because it is, 100,000 ounces a year of recoverable gold for 22 years is actually considered quite a large gold mine. But the way we look at the gold is it is yet another financing tool for which we can
like a stream or something.
A stream royalty. Obviously, gold still does trade at premium valuations. We've seen streaming companies, royalty companies doing deals for even development assets with very low cost of capital, 4 to 9%, call it. Right? We see them do streams and royalties for negative cost of capital for producing assets. So the longer we wait to sell these streams and royalties, the more beneficial it is for us. And the beautiful thing about this asset is that gold is a byproduct. It's not our primary commodity. Our primary commodity is copper, and that's the reason why we're able to access these extremely attractive tax credits through flow-through financings. Our last deal was done at 60% premium to the back-end order. So I think that as long as we're moving the project forward in a expedited way, the financing, the money will be available to us.
Right, and the important thing about flow through is I'm not a big fan of it, but the important thing is that what I don't like about it is the shares ended up being held by disinterested shareholders that are just interested in the tax credit and sell in 4 months. But your back end are people that are investing in the company, but at the discount.
Correct. Correct. So we did what we did. The 60% premium to the back end was a charity flow through. And so with charity, the differentiation between a charity flow through and a traditional flow through that you just described is traditional flow throughs usually are purchased by funds that, again, are doing it most for the tax credit, but they're also looking for good quality names as well. But because this is a charity flow through structure, our back end buyers, at least for our deal, was predominantly institutions, and Michael Gentili, who owns approximately 9.9% of our company. So he came in as a back end, and the rest were reputable institutions that everyone would know.
Okay, so you've raised this money. You're sitting on what kind of working capital position right now?
We're about $9 million of the last reported quarter.
Right now. And so as a potential investor that's watching this video, what can they expect that you're going to deliver with the working capital that you have?
Sure. So obviously there's a capital allocation balance between exploration and development. And right now, clearly, the market has really gravitated towards our exploration potential upside, right? So what we have is a 50-kilometer district that starts at the old BHP Island copper mine. This is on Vancouver Island. This is just a few kilometers away from Port Hardy, very industrial area. It's an area that we have very strong support by the North Island MLA. We've got very strong support from the political environment around Minister Rankin, Minister Ralston, and of course our Premier. And then of course at the federal level, I've just described how critical metals are being perceived and moved forward in an expedited way, tied in with the reconciliation team. So we believe that our project is quite attractive for the government, municipal, political, federal, to expedite and move forward. Evidence of this is that we've actually just joined the BC RMA, which is a strategic alliance between industry in BC and the BC government, the provincial government, that essentially highlights and espouses the virtues of mining in BC for development companies such as us. So their initial foray into this activity was in 2015, where they promoted the Golden Triangle, and Skeena, Ascot, Dolly Varden were their members. But these members specifically were part of this initiative with the BC government. So now version 2.0, where the BC government is looking to expand their breadth around saying, pretty much projecting to the world that we're open for business, we've been included with 2 other companies, new companies, as part of the strategic alliance. And the objective here is obviously to go beyond the Golden Triangle and to say, look, BC is open for business. Mining in the North Island permitting in the North Island is no different than permitting anywhere else in British Columbia. And where we are, specifically in the North Island, is highly supported by, as I said, the municipal level, with the MLA being very strongly supported of this initiative. So I think that it probably does perhaps address a lot of the concerns around, well, can you actually permit something on the island? We feel that we have very strong political will, which is evidenced by this inclusion in the BCRMA.
But the history of having a mine, Island Copper, that produced for over 2 decades, run by BHP, that doesn't provide people a lot of comfort? Or?
Well, it's interesting because when they think of the island, they think of Tofino, and they think of old growth forests, and they think of Victoria. But the reality is we're 550 kilometers away north of Victoria. The island is bifurcated in terms of 2 parts of it. It's the industrial part of it, which is essentially the start of Campbell River to the north. Yeah. And then, of course, the south of it is where you would find the Fino and a lot of the old growth forests and Victoria. So we're about 300 kilometers north of Campbell River. Right. And the history of mining, forestry, and fishing has been ongoing for hundreds of years now. So Western Forest Products is our logging, our surface rights partners who have the logging rights. These are in 3rd, 4th generation logging right now. Port Hardy, the town that I mentioned to you, which is only about a 20-minute drive, 30-minute drive on a paved road into our property. That town was essentially built by that Island Copper mine. I think it had 700 people before that Island Copper mine started, and then it burgeoned up to 4,000 or 5,000 people in its heyday. So the history of that area, as defined by mining, fishing, and forestry has been exceedingly important throughout the last 40, 50 years.
So in terms of drilling, you are drilling those exploration holes and that. So I just want to know, like, you already have a significant resource that you might also, contemplate might be already a critical mass.
Yep.
What does the exploration drilling do for you?
It's interesting, right? So my chairman always has a saying. He says, "People pay for mystery, not history."
Yeah.
And as you say, we've amassed a 5 billion pound indicated resource, copper equivalent, of which within that there's about 3 million ounces of indicated resources. So what we believe is, we've got 3 analysts that research us. We're trading at a 0.06 times our net asset value, according to that independent research. So what we believe right now is we have a very substantial arbitrage that's happening between what we have and what the market is giving us. So think of this as a $1 billion NPV project, which was defined by our PEA and our research analyst coverage. And we're a $40 million company. So the arbitrage there is available. The second part of it is exploration, right? So this is where the mystery is. Well, what do we have? We have this 50-kilometer strike distance that we know as a porphyry district, right? We know this district has been displaced slightly through faulting from the island copper, and that's where we're finding our deposits. There's at least 3 to 5 systems, separate systems within that 50-kilometer district. Mm-hmm. We are now systematically going for each one. So starting from the smallest one, but probably the most predictable, is Northwest Expo, where we're finding over 80-meter intersections of over 1.2 grams per ton gold equivalent. So this is gold within the copper porphyry system, which is significant. I think you would know, and most people know, that the average gold in copper porphyries or in porphyries is about 0.5 times. So this is about 2 times higher than the average gold grades in porphyries, average globally. And it's about 4 to 5 times higher than the grades that we have currently in our defined resources. So that's quite significant. It's smaller. We've defined an envelope across a 500-meter strike length, 400 meters down dip, and a thickness of approximately 80 meters. We're looking to do a resource update on that soon. Then moving towards the larger system, which is Pemberton Hills. And this is the system that sits between our project and BHP's project, almost equal distance. This is defined by this massive 6.5 by 1.5 kilometer lithocap at surface. And for those that don't know the significance of that, is that this is a highly altered system that is usually exists on top of a porphyry system, and it's an indicator. It's a very strong indicator on how usually large the system is. Right? There's no guarantee there's mineralization, or at least mineralization at a reasonable depth, which is what we're finding right now. It is quite deep, but there's no doubt that this is a massive system. So if you were to map that against Northwest Expo, this would be multiples the size of that system. Having said that, we haven't found the source yet. We believe the source is deep, but the new thesis that we've been developing since the last time you visited the property last year is that the system, we believe, is now tilted towards the southeast. And if the relevance of that is that it's tilted towards southeast, we believe that we can actually intersect the core of the porphyry system in the valley, which is about 700 meters below the top of the hill, which is where we drilled last year. And hopefully that, goes 700 to 900 meters into the lithocap, which obviously the key to this is that we know that the system is there. We just don't know how deep it is. And if it's too deep, it's not mineable, or it's not of any use to us. And so
it's a true exploration play.
It is a true, as I said, this is our elephant safari, right? But it is high risk, and we, obviously high rewards if we actually find it. So there is an allocation towards that program of this capital that we just raised that would look at surface work, IP, and then obviously targeting towards drilling program.
Okay, so that's Northisle copper and gold with a huge resource already established that's looking to infill but also expand the known resource with potentially more gold at Northwest Expo and potentially an elephant at Pemberton Hills.
Correct.
But also on the critical mineral path that has strategic financing options now in Canada. So thanks a lot, Sam.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Good
So
to see
it's
you.
Joe Mazumdar, Exploration Insights at the September 2022 Metals Investment Forum, thank you for joining us.